Hello, Internet. It is my race debrief video. I used to do these on Instagram post-race and let everybody know, those that have followed for the last couple of years, let everybody know how the race went and do a race report. And it's good for my own review as I continue on this journey. So it is May 1st, and about 10 days ago, Perry and I, my husband and I, were in London running the London Marathon. And I have to just talk about the medal. Usually I'm like, yeah, medal, that's nice, and it goes on the wall. I never think about it again. This is one of the coolest medals ever. So there's Braille on it. So like, as somebody that works with visually impaired people and the sister of somebody who's a Braille reader, like, pretty cool. So as soon as I crossed the line, I was able to read the Braille, and I was pretty excited about that. It says "We run together." So how inclusive is that, and how cool? And on the back, I don't know if you can see that well, it has like engravings of like all the major sites that you run by. So it says Blackheath, which is the park it starts in, Cutty Sark, which is the big boat that you run around, Tower Bridge, which is a legendary experience to run across that thing. Those of you that watched on Instagram would have seen videos of a live video of me doing that. Canary Wharf, Victoria, Embankment, Houses of Parliament, Buckingham Palace. So you run by all the major landmarks. Like the finish line is like in front of Buckingham Palace. Like it's like in a movie. It's so cool. So the course was cool. The course was like off the charts, amazing. I hadn't been to London since 1998. So that's like 26 years ago. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't enchanted with London the last time I went. I found it like busy, noisy, dirty, expensive. I mean, I was a 19-year-old backpacker. This time we had a very different experience. We got there, the air was like, I was expecting like super polluted air and just craziness. And I'm sure the air quality isn't off the charts good, but everything's electric vehicles, like all the cabs, all the buses and stuff like that. So it actually wasn't like you didn't noticeably like inhale fumes everywhere you went. That was actually noticeable. And it's spring there, so like everything's in bloom. There's cherry blossoms and everything's in bloom, and it's quite beautiful. And we got there, took a red eye Wednesday night before the race, got there on a Thursday, made ourselves stay up until bedtime on Thursday to try and counteract the jet lag. So we did like a bunch of walking on Thursday trying to get our bearings. Friday was like race package pickup, so that's like underground to the expo, back, check out the Tower Bridge, check out some of the sites. We walked around. We were staying right close to the finish line, so we like checked out the palace and Big Ben and all the things. That was pretty cool. Saturday is like kind of last minute details, but like mostly like feet up in movies, as coach would say. So we kind of chilled out, and it worked out great because Kefren was playing provincials that weekend. So we got to like stream, and the time worked out so that it was later in the day for us, and we got to stream his games, and so that worked out great. I ended up booking hotel or restaurant reservations for every night we were there, and they were all like within like 1 block radius of our hotel, and all the food that we ate was delicious and amazing. And that was one thing I remember from 1998 is the food was like, but we were going to like cheap, whatever, super inexpensive pubs and stuff like that, and this was like really nice restaurants, and the food was like unbelievably good every night. So that was amazing. A little surprise was I had worked with, or I guess not really, our time didn't overlap, but I met this fellow from Britain when I, back in the day, like 10 years ago in Nordegg at COE. I used to work at COE, and so I was kind of involved in the community there, and my parents have a place in Nordegg. And anyway, long story short, met this fellow, got to know him a little bit, and stayed in touch a little bit after he left. He's a runner. He's a very fast, accomplished runner, quite a bit younger than me, like 10, 12 years younger than me. Anyway, he's British, so he went back to Britain and like got on with his life, and we kind of lost touch a little bit. Anyway, so he looks me up, like he heard that I was coming to the UK, and took a 2.5-hour train ride to meet up with Perry and I to go for dinner and catch up. And he's like, "Do you remember that you used to like ridicule me about being a runner?" And he's like a 2:40 marathoner, right? I'm like, yeah, and a barefoot runner. I just laughed. I was like, yes, yes, I remember that. I'm sorry. That's what you get. That's karma. Anyway, so that was the night before the race. So race day. I'll do my finally. I'm 2 minutes into this video and 5 minutes into this video, and I'll finally get to race day. So I slept actually pretty decent. Perry basically didn't sleep at all. I was feeling like a little jittery, but like also like very prepared, like haze in the barn, like whatever it is, what it is. Like I had a lot of like good mantras in my mind. So I slept about 6 hours. We got up at 6, we went down to the gym, did a little stretch, went to the hotel restaurant. I had a hard time eating because of the nerves though. I only got like one piece of toast in, so that wasn't awesome. And then I was like sipping some salt water before the race. We got on the underground. It's a 1 hour, 50-minute kind of underground free ride for race day. And we get on this train. We're the first people on it. We're there with a whole bunch of other runners. And then it stops and stops and stops. And like the train is like, it's so full that people aren't getting on it now. Like they're trying to get on it, and you can see them outside swearing and stuff. So we were like so grateful that we got on first. Anyway, so we finally get to Blackheath and to the park, and we start walking, and it's like being in a parade. Like the streets are just like shoulder to shoulder. Like Perry has a video of this, like walking up towards the park. Like it was 55,000 runners. So the race is so big that they have 3 different start lines and 4 different start zones. And so the first thing that kind of threw us when we were getting prepared to come over to London is that we were in different start areas. Perry was in blue and I was in yellow. And then I was like, yellow doesn't even have a start line. I was like, what does that mean? So I did some research. It turns out that yellow is reserved for like people who are good for age. So if you're like fairly in whatever percentage of your age group for your time or your projected time, you're in this little yellow zone. And we went out on the red start line ahead of the reds. So anyway, so we split up so we got there, it's 9 o'clock. Our projected start time is like 10:09 or something like that. So we split up, we go to our start zone so we can like drop off our bags and go to the bathroom and all that stuff. And the yellow start line, I think one of the advantages of the yellow start line is there's less people, it's a little bit smaller. And so I actually managed, and they had female urinals, which I've never seen before, which was kind of awesome because it was like lady only lines if you just had to pee. And so I managed to get 2 pees in before the race, which is like unheard of. So that was all good. And then putting us in corrals and find your pacer. So this is also unusual. Like Boston didn't have a pacer, didn't have a pace group. And I kind of latched on to the 320 guy and got to know his name and whatever. It's a pretty big group of us. So and it says on his sign like sub 320. So I was like, well, what's the plan here? And he's like, sub 320. I was like, are we negative splitting? Like, he's like, well, we'll see what happens. I was like, okay, sure. We'll see what happens. So the first 5, so then you go out for 5K and it's like mostly downhill, like a couple little uphills, but like pretty big downhill. And then at 5K, all 3 routes merge. So we go out and like every major, like you're pretty packed in when you first start running, like not a lot of room. The other thing I wasn't expecting is that there's like road furniture, as they say in cycling. So there's like stuff in the middle of the roads, like, and so if you're not paying attention, like you're going down. And sure enough, like people are falling like beside me, and like all through almost the whole race, people were wiping out because you just couldn't see anything. I missed probably half of the water stations because I couldn't see them in time. I was kind of in the middle and I was like, oh, there, I missed another one. Well, missed another one. So I was like, if I wanted to get water, I had to like start to move over and then start actively looking for it because there were so many people. So it was really busy for the first 5K, and Pacer Buddy, like hammered. Like my heart rate was 175, like immediately. I was like, well, this is not the plan. It's not the plan. But I was like, you know what? Whatever, just relax. Like, just don't worry about your heart rate. Don't even look at it. Just relax. And that's it. Like, your job is to relax. And so I kind of just chilled out. He was very surgy, and he was even like hammering on some of the ups. And so I'd kind of like let go on the ups so I wouldn't blow up. And then I trained like hammering on the downhills after Boston. So I was like, I'd catch it back on the downhill, and I ran them pretty aggressive. And anyway, it all worked out. 5K in, we're on the 3:15 pace, right? So we're like with the 3:15s. I was like, okay, I guess we're gonna run the first 5K hot. So we did. And then the start lines merge. So it gets like full on starting. So if it was busy before, and now it's insane. So I'm having a really hard time, like even staying with the pacer guy, but I managed to. So we're going, he's kind of zigging and zagging. And at the 10K mark, we're still with the 315s. So we're still on a 315 pace. So I'm thinking, I don't know about this guy. I don't know. So anyway, I just say like, just relax, just relax, just relax. Like, you're okay, you're okay. Cause I was okay. I felt okay. Something I will say is Vancouver was my first marathon 2 years ago, and I felt great. I went out too hard, and by the halfway mark, I still felt great. But quickly after that, I ran out of gas, and I was lucky to finish with a 3:30, which was my goal, because I went out at a 4:45 pace. Then I dropped to like a 5:15, 5:30 pace, and then I managed to like finish at a 5 pace. So I barely got the time. And it hurt. Like I was in just a world of hurt, just suffering for like the last 10, 15K. My legs were so beat up from the downhill. Like right before halfway in Vancouver, you run like this 2K downhill section, and I had not trained that at all. And my quads were just trashed. So fast forward and I finished the line. I was like, I'm never doing that again. That was so much suffering. I'm never doing that again. And then I found out I qualified for Boston, and then I applied, and then I got in. And so then I, of course, wanted to go. And so I went. And Boston was cold, and I was underdressed and wet. And as soon as it started, my legs were trashed. Like 10K into Boston, I felt like 30K into Vancouver. I was like, this is not good. And I was more prepared for Boston. I was like trained up to run like a 3:50 and 3:20. Like that's the pace I went out at, like 4:40 per kilometer. And anyway, it was a lot of suffering, and I barely finished, and I still finished with a 3:30, but that was way slower than I had hoped. And I thought about stepping off every 8, like the whole thing, I just suffered for the entire thing. And same thought, I was like, I'm never doing that again. Never doing that again. So coming into London, I was kind of expecting the like, what the hell are you doing? Because that's what happened in Boston. I was like, I thought we agreed we were never doing this again. That thought showed up like really soon in the race. So I was kind of waiting for that thought to show up in London, and it never came. Like at halfway, like at 20 kilometers, you're running over that Tower Bridge, and I'm still with the pacer guy, and we're jumping and like showing off on the bridge. Like I have the best pictures because I was still having so much fun. And then we cross halfway, and I'm like, I still feel great. This is great. And so I kind of just I let go of the pacer at that point. I just ignored him. I was like, no more of you, Sergi man. I'm just going to run my own pace. So I kind of just like settled into like what I wanted to run, which was 4:45s, which was the pace I had trained to run. And I felt good, and I felt good, and I felt good, and I had fun, and I smiled, and everything was great. And everything was great all the way until like probably kilometer like 36, 37. And even then I wasn't in suffering. I was like in like, okay, now you have to focus. Like I really needed to just like mentally, I need to like get serious instead of like play around. I was like, no, focus in, like, and just break it down into kilometer, like 5 minutes. You just got to run for 5 minutes. Okay. How are you doing? Okay. You got to run for another 5. Like, so I just had to focus, but it wasn't like pain cave suffering. Like it just never got there. And so coming up this finish line, I was like dropping the pace and kind of sprinting for parts of it, and like smiling, and like, it was amazing. Like so I'd seen other people run marathons like that, and I was like, I think I could do that. I think I could enjoy the whole thing. So I enjoyed the whole thing. And that is like probably one of the coolest experiences of my life, because the volume of runners, 55,000 runners, like any major marathon where you're running with a huge volume of people, like I thought Vancouver was so cool, and then I thought Boston was so cool, and like London is like almost double the amount of runners. Like it's just nuts. And because the run is like through the major city, they shut down like the city essentially. And so everybody's like just out and like partying and drinking and music. And it's like a freaking 42-kilometer party that you're running through. Like it's, I don't even know how to describe it. It was amazing. It was incredible. So everything was amazing. Everything was great. I was super prepared coming in. Like my marathon build couldn't have gone better. Like I nailed every single one of the key long runs. Like I mean, it was great. Like what do you have to say? So I feel really grateful about all of that, like beyond grateful. Perry, that was only his second marathon. So I would kind of, and he had an injury coming in. He had a runner's knee pain. And so which didn't show up till about 3 weeks before the race. So his fitness was mostly like, hay was in the barn, but he didn't have a great taper. He wasn't able to do many of the runs. And when he did, he had pain. And so his pain started at like 12K into the run. So he ran for 30K in pain and really, really, really suffered. He still ran a personal best. I didn't even say my time. So 3:18 was my time, 3:18 and change, which is a 12-minute PB. So like, woo, it's great. Perry ran a PB 3 minutes. He ran a 3:33, almost a 3:34. So like just shy of 3:34, which is a BQ. BQ time for his age category is 3:35. So it's amazing. So we're going to apply to Boston. It's not a very big buffer for him. It's only just over a minute. So I feel like our chances are not great. But we'll apply and we'll see what happens. And if we both get in, we'll go. And if we don't both go, like I have like a 30-minute buffer. So I'm in. But we won't go unless we both get in. And so Perry, I was thinking too, like watching him like lay on the ground in the finish line. I was like, this is not good. He's never going to want to do this with me again. Like he's retiring. Like this is not good. So I for sure wasn't going to broach the next one or talk about Boston or talk about any of the 6-star. I was like, we are not going to talk about running. We're just going to get this man to the hotel, which was a 2-kilometer walk on really sore legs through really busy people. But whatever, it actually turned out okay. We stopped on the way back for coffee, like a warm coffee and baking, and it all worked out good. And sure enough, like I think even before we got back to the hotel, hobbled back to the hotel, we were both hobbling pretty good. He says, I don't know if that's enough time for Boston. I guess we'll have to see. But what's plan B? And I was like, what do you mean? What's plan B? He's like, well, like what's the other options? I was like, well, the 3 spring marathons are Tokyo, London, and Boston, because we want to try and get all the 6 stars. And so, and there's 3 in the fall, and the fall ones don't necessarily work right now because I'm hoping to qualify for Kona, which would be in the fall, like next fall. So do Ironman Canada and then hopefully qualify for Kona, which would be the following September. So like that negates any fall marathons for me, potentially, right? So that can't be the plan B initially. And he's like, well, what about Tokyo? I was like, what? You want to go to Japan? He's like, yeah, like look into it. So I started doing some digging, and like sure enough, we can we can buy a marathon tour package to go to Tokyo, and then again, just like with London, guarantees your race entry. So we are looking at that very seriously. It hasn't opened yet, but we're looking at that as a possibility. And then if we got into Boston, we would just run both 5 weeks apart. So anyway, that's potentially what's next for running, marathon running. Something I will say, because I did look at like, how do you get into Tokyo? Because same thing, it's a huge ballot process. These majors are getting harder and harder and harder to get into. London 2025 has 850,000 ballots, which is a record number, ballot entries for 40,000 spots. So like, that's like 1 in a million. Feels like that. So I actually ran a time for Tokyo that could guarantee me an entry in good for, or actually not good for age, semi-elite. So if any woman runs sub 3:19, you can apply for a semi-elite status. So I just barely got into that. That same category for men is 246. So it's like a massive difference. So anyway, but we won't do that because then we would have to be relying on Perry's ballot. And again, this is another huge ballot process. So we would want to know for sure that that's what we're doing. So we'll probably do a marathon tour. And something I will say about doing a marathon tour, that takes all of the planning out of it, which makes it so easy. You just show up, you just pay your money and book your flights, and everything is taken care of. It's kind of awesome. So there's I don't love, I could never be a travel agent. I do not like planning itineraries, or like, I hate that job. I hate it. I'm not good at it. I'm the kind of, when I've traveled through my 20s, which was a lot and all over the world, I would go for months at a time and never have a plan. I would like show up in Costa Rica, be like, so what's there to see in Costa Rica? And like make it up as I went along. Like but you'd have time to do that because you're there for months. This is the kind of traveler that I am. So Anyway, this Tokyo thing is a very real possibility. We should have to figure out the financial piece, how we're going to save the money and plan for that, and potentially both races. So anyway, so it's all good. The recovery. So after we ran the race, we went home to the hotel and watched my son win provincials, his team, which was amazing. They played so well. They almost lost the quarterfinal, and then I actually thought they lost it. So I shut the computer and went out for dinner, and then it turns out they came back and won, which was really unexpected, which was incredible. And then Kefren, my son, won an all-star award for the tournament. So that was pretty exciting. Made me cry. So that was really, really cool. And then we got in a flight the next morning, early in the morning, to Halifax. We got off the plane, we got into a 5-hour shuttle bus and shuttled to the northern part of Cape Breton Island. So my husband is from Cape Breton, and he hadn't been back to the island in 16 years, and he hadn't seen his brothers in 16 years and some of his family members for that long. So we stayed with his brother Sheldon and his wife Paula, and for 4 nights, yeah. And saw aunts and uncles, and I saw a girlfriend that I went to grad school with, because I went to grad school in Halifax, and saw some friends that Perry hadn't seen since he left, and it was really great. And so no working out, no training. Our legs started to feel sort of normal, and we could do stairs by Wednesday or Thursday. We started to come into normal land. And then Friday, we took the 5-hour shuttle back down to Halifax, stayed in the airport hotel, and got up at 3:30 in the morning to catch a flight to Montreal and then a flight to Edmonton. As soon as we got home, the kids were here, Perry's kids were here, and his mom, and we got the dog back, and that was a big reunion, and that was great. And then Sunday was get ready to go back to work. And so this week has been back to work, and that's been all good. I'm having surgery tomorrow. So I've talked about this a little bit. I am having a hysteroscopy, so to deal with the extreme bleeding and the fibroids and all that stuff. So that's tomorrow, which will delay my training a little further, a couple more days of recovery after that. And then starting May 6th, Monday, it's Ironman training. Boom. So that is what is next. This week was one little baby swim yesterday, and I'll do one little baby bike today. And then, yeah, that's kind of it, because I got to do the surgery recovery. And then we're on to Ironman. So that's my update. Big, long one. For those of you that are still watching, wow. Wow. That's all I have to say. Thank you for the support. And thank you to everyone who messaged me and encouraged me. And it's always lovely to get so many positive high fives from all of my different contacts and friends. Okay, peace out.